Hey there, Libra. How you doing? So this is a forecast starting on your full moon, the full moon in Libra. That's happening on the 13th of April. And it's a 2-week forecast taking you to the next big moon, which will be the new moon in Taurus on the 27th of April. Now, these 2 weeks are absolutely I think they are wrapping up a couple of really big patterns that have been going on for quite some time. In particular, we're coming up to the point of wrapping up the Mars and Pluto opposition that really started to come in at October 2024, really hit us hard November the 3rd, January the 3rd, and now it's coming up again for the last and final time on the 27th of April. So I'll be decoding that in your chart and really going to town on it. There's also the end of what has seemed like a huge season of personal retrogrades. So, we've got the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, and they really do affect us in more of a sort of generational way, and they appear as outer circumstances. But when we've got things like, let's say, Mars retrograde, we're really feeling the energies in a very sort of personal way, really in our body, so we might find that we are internalizing our vitality. We're not feeling as forthright. We're not able to take action in quite the same way. When Mercury's retrograde, we might find our head goes to mush. We can't quite focus on things. We might not explain things very well. When Venus goes retrograde, we might not feel so related to people, so there is usually this feeling of a little bit of a distance and a sort of pining for the past. Well, here's the thing. We've had either Mars, Mercury, or Venus, or a little bit of two of them, pretty much consistently retrograde since the 6th of December. Now, there were, I think, 6 days off at the end of February and leading up to the 2nd of March, which was when Venus went retrograde. So we had 6 days off from these very life-changing, very personal feeling retrogrades. But really, since December, right the way through to this week, the start of this particular forecast, the 13th of April, that is when Venus finally goes direct and we're out of this kind of retrograde funk. So, yeah, I mean, this is another big thing. So there's a couple of really big patterns. I really do think there's going to be a feeling of release coming up for you, Libra. And so that's what I'm really hoping to show you as I take you through this on a step-by-step basis to look at the planetary weather, see how it's going to affect you, but also consider some choices on how you might want to use this energy. If you're new to this channel, my name's Louise Satana Munson. Welcome. I use Feel Good Astrology as my name, because I think astrology shouldn't be used as a stick to beat yourself with. It should be there to show you the sort of choices, a sense of when things are changing, so you can start to plan things in for the great big changes that are coming up. So, I really see it as being kind of proactive. If you've come here before, then welcome back. Thanks for coming back. I really appreciate that. So anyway, let's get going. Let's have a look at what this might mean for us. And when I say us, I actually mean you, because I don't have very much Libra in me at all. Just got my Pluto in Libra. So, and I should say this is for you if you've got your sun in Libra or your ascendant in Libra. That will absolutely really hold true as well. So let's dive in now. Now, first thing I want to really bring about the energy of is, during this 2-week period, we're going from the full moon to the new moon. And as you can see here, the full moon is fully illuminated. All of our patterns are very obvious at this time. We can really see where we might have let ourselves down, or things might have got too much. We might realize that we're juggling too many patterns at the same time. We can't quite cope. I often feel quite overwhelmed at the time of the full moon. And if you think about the waters on Earth, we tend to have higher tides at this time, and it does affect things like menstruation and stuff. And of course, our waters are also influenced by the moon. It's not just the tides, but all water. So we do get stirred. We do feel things so much more than usual. And this, of course, is a very important one for you, because it's in such an important place. It's in your sign, in the sign of Libra. So this is likely to stir you in a huge way. And actually, when you have a look at the full moon in Libra chart, you'll see what I mean. I mean, it's really big. And then during this first week, after this feeling of, whoa, where did that come from? That really hit me. We start to like shave off all those bits we don't want in our life anymore. So anywhere where it's felt overwhelming and you realize you're carrying a pattern you don't need, you'll be able to consciously let go of that. And that's the thing, in this first week, we're still very conscious of what we're letting go of. But when we get to this third quarter phase, you start to see that we're coming into the mystery and the darkness and the magic and the intuition, all the unconscious things and the energies. So, this is the point where we start to let go, but it's from a place of trust and hope. It's not from a place of certainty and full conscious awareness. It's from this place of, I just know I can't do this anymore, and I'm trusting that life will have my back. And so it's almost like we're surrendering into this process. And then as we come to the time of the new moon, usually what has happened is we've cleared a lot of space so that we can sow some seeds. In particular, sow seeds of things that we would love to enjoy in our life, maybe by the next full moon when things are culminating, or a few full moons down the road. So I really do encourage that during the process of this waning moon forecast, you're letting go, tidying things up, neatening things up, seeing where patterns have led, and just being very sort of conscious or unconscious, like trusting that anything that's not for you, you can release and let go, let it kind of die off. And then anything that is for you, you hold on to and you cherish and you look after. So it really is a time of discernment. Now, if we look at this particular pattern on a diary, and I find this quite helpful because, my head is always in a diary of some sorts. We've got the full moon happening on the 13th of April on a Sunday. The new moon is 2 weeks later, exactly on a Sunday, on the 27th of April. That third quarter point that I was hinting at, where it's half dark, half light, that's on the 21st. Now, what you'll see in this first week is there's a lot of stuff going on. And in the second week, it's not so much. Now, the first thing I want to say, obviously the second week is the more unconscious week, where there's a bit more darkness, a bit more mystery and uncertainty, and where we're really needing to tune in and probably slow right down and to just trust in the process of what's going on. But there are some very deep and hard working aspects going on in that second week. So I do recommend, if you're sort of planning your time over the next couple of weeks, that you give yourself a lot more recovery time, a lot more consideration time, reflection time in week 2, because there's some harder hitting aspects. It's a lot more upbeat and fun in the first week from the full moon to the third quarter. So for instance, the first big thing, actually, before the full moon in Libra comes in, is that Venus goes direct. So I mentioned, this is the end of the retrograde periods. And, neither Mercury, Mars, or Venus are out of the retrograde shadow. So they haven't got to the point that they first went retrograde from. And so they're not considered to be working back. They're not on par with how they were prior to the retrograde. However, they are moving forwards. They're all direct. And so, we've got Mercury, Mars, and Venus all direct from the 13th. To me, that's an indication that we are almost cutting off anything that was dragging behind us. So a bit like, when you've got a hot air balloon, you've got your sandbags kind of weighing you down. And you've also got some cords tying you down. I really think we're cutting the cords. We're holding on to the sandbags a little bit at the moment. We're just trying to, we don't want to go really up high. We're just kind of hovering a little bit, and we will release those sandbags a little bit later. In fact, as of Wednesday, Mercury will go into Aries, and that was the sign that Mercury was in before he went as he went retrograde. That's a huge improvement in terms of Mercury function. When he went back into Pisces in the fullness of the retrograde, Mercury's not happy in the sign of Pisces. Pisces is such a an open and possibly confusing sign at times. You know, that Mercury just really kind of suffers a little bit. It's a little too creative and not very focused. And so from the 16th, it feels like we release the Mercury sandbag and we go up a little higher. You know, we're rising up again, and our brain is a lot more focused, forward, fiery, direct. It's a lot more independent, and you're feeling a lot more succinct, which is really great. Similarly, on the 18th, when Mars goes into Leo, again, the sign it was in when it went retrograde last. When Mars goes into Leo, he's going to be sayonara Cancer. It's like, get lost, Cancer, I'm out of here. And, you know, as Mars goes into Leo, I think this is going to be very helpful. You know, we're going to be a lot more central in our own life's theme. You know, we will take action for our own well-being. We will be feeling a lot more playful, a lot more vital. You know, I think we're going to be enjoying being in our bodies so much more. So I see that we're going to be taking action. Again, there's another retrograde sandbag we're putting down, and we're rising up even higher in our hot air balloon. So yeah, this is significant. Also in this week, and this is quite a poignant reminder, I can think of some things I need to work on, but Saturn in a conjunction with the North Node is reminding us that any loose ends that you've got, in particular legal ones, financial ones, anything that could really hold you back from succeeding, it's time to really address those. So, you know, I really see that this first week is about cutting the drag, letting go of everything that's holding you back, and starting to take conscious steps forwards. There's also a couple of really cute aspects with Neptune. So, you know, Neptune's fresh in the sign of Aries. Mercury makes his first conjunction in Aries with Neptune, and Mars makes his first aspect with Neptune. He'll be in a trine with Neptune, but they're both in fire signs. So we've got Mercury and Neptune in a trine with Mars, all exact, beautiful. I mean, this is a really lovely energy that is getting people to work with their creativity and to feel really fired up, like they can really move forwards. And then as we come to the end of this week, Venus makes a conjunction to the North Node, and we're feeling really empowered in our life story. Like we feel like we know what we're doing, we know what our purpose is. And there's 3 sextiles. A couple of them, I think, are including Uranus. I mean, Uranus is very well placed in this whole 2-week period. But what this is saying to me is, you know, if you're ready to take action, there's a lot of speed, there's a lot of assistance to really help you get that job done. So it's all good. Then as we get to the 3rd quarter, the Sun makes a square with Mars. The Sun makes a square with Pluto. And then right at the end, we've got Mars opposition Pluto. Now, in truth, the Sun is already in a square with Mars right at the start, but it's exact on the 21st. The Sun is also in a square with Pluto, but it's exact on the 23rd. And Mars and Pluto are pretty much in an opposition this whole time, but it's exact on the 27th. But when these 3 come together, you've got Mars and Pluto at opposite ends of the spectrum, and then the Sun in the middle, forming a right-angled triangle. Now, these right-angled triangles astrologically are known as T-squares, and they are really quite tense. And so this is something that's going on throughout the whole 2 weeks in a variety of ways. I'll show you how, but they are going to be bringing up, I think, for the final time, some very big tension that you've been living under, you've been trying to forget about, you've been trying to avoid, you've been trying to do everything but that thing. And then that thing that you've been trying to do and attend to, it's almost like when you've actually tried to do it, there's been something else that comes up. So there is this kind of tense situation. And I think during the course of this 2 weeks, you're going to be able to find a way out of it. So I'm going to bring up the charts now, but just before I do, I'd like to say thank you to everybody that contributes to this channel, everybody that like sends me like buys me a coffee, or who has invested in my membership, or in all the different multitudes of ways that people have helped. You really, really do make a difference. I really adore you. Thank you so much. And this channel would be very, very different without your support. So I really do. I'm very, very grateful for your input. Thank you so much. But anyway, let's have a look at these 3 charts now. So the first one is for the full moon in Libra. And you can see here, there's the full moon at 23 degrees 20 in the sign of Libra, and the sun is in a conjunction with Chiron. Yikes. And it's part of this very sort of angry looking grand square constellation. There's Mars, there's Pluto, the moon, and the sun. Now, the sun is pretty much in this area the whole 2 weeks, because the sun just moves 1 degree a day, pretty much. The sun moves around this whole circle in a lunar month. But as we look at this, you'll see that the moon is involved at every step of the way, the halfway point here on the 21st and also on the new moon. So let's see. So the moon is going to be moving around this way. Let's see what happens. So when we get to the 3rd quarter, the moon has moved around and has reached Pluto. So you've got Pluto and the moon in opposition to Mars and in a square to the sun, and also in a wide square to Chiron. And then in the 3rd chart, the moon has moved around again and has now caught up with the sun. So it's the sun and the moon, Pluto and Mars. So however you are looking at it, the Pluto and Mars energy right now in this 2 weeks ahead is always impacted by the sun and the moon. So the sun and the moon is the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark, the yielding and thrusting. Mars and Pluto. Wow, this is interesting. Mars is our ability to defend, our ability to move and take action and to be forthright. It's very much the masculine principle. Pluto, I think, really shows us how far we'll go to retain control over something. I mean, at its worst, Pluto can be devastatingly megalomaniac or megalomaniacal, I guess is the actual word I'm looking for. But, with Pluto is always showing us where we need to surrender, where, I always think Pluto gives us a bit of a bitch slap across the face and says, hey, remember, you're just a mortal. So wherever I've noticed Pluto has been in my chart and challenging me somehow, when I've been squaring up to Pluto and saying, I don't care about you, I'm going to overcome this hardship. I'm going to do this thing that I think that you think you're going to stop me. You're not. Anytime I've squared up to Pluto and that Pluto energy, I've failed every single time. I might make a little win, but then I go back 2 or 3 steps. There's always something that comes up. It's like fighting an invisible force. It's like fighting reality. You're always going to lose because reality is always going to win. And so, with Pluto, what I've noticed is when we surrender and we recognize that sometimes there are forces greater than us, and actually that surrender is almost like a deepening of trust in life. So we kind of put our survival in the hands of life. We trust life. It's an awkward one because, we've been trained into hostility as a form of survival, like the survival of the fittest and stuff. And this opposition between Mars and Pluto really brings out every single survival issue that we might have. It is all about the survival. So this is very instinctual stuff that's going on over this next couple of weeks for you, Libra. So this all starts with this full moon in your 1st house, and this part of your chart is really about sensitivity in your body, sensitivity about your image and who you are seen to be. If you've been holding any masks, if you've been pretending to be somebody else, you're going to get quite emotional about it. There's definitely going to be a breaking down of that. I mean, the moon in this area is really going to get a very real response from you, where you really feel things. And you're wearing your heart on your sleeve. It's really asking you to kind of crack open into extreme levels of vulnerability. Now that could sound a little bit terrifying, because I know the Libran energy, actually, they're very good diplomats, and they usually do have a mask, actually, because they like to keep calm. They like to be in a sort of equilibrium. It's no surprise, when I've worked in corporations and things, there've been loads and loads of Libran types in HR positions where they keep their poker face and they are trying to help everybody. And of course, you can't always help everybody. You can't always stay on an even keel, with an even balance. It's impossible, and bless you, you do try. And so I do think this full moon is likely to not knock you off your perch. I don't mean to say that, but a deeper truth about who you are is going to come up that doesn't include being nice to others first. It's actually including being nice to you first, like include yourself. This is about you putting you first. And it's going to be interesting. It's really interesting, because what's happening on the other side of this full moon, we've got the sun in a conjunction with Chiron. So, and it's in this part of your chart to do with relationships. And so anywhere where you've had a hurt, a very identifiable hurt, one you're completely identified with, that has to do with other people, most hurts do, it's likely to be really activated at this time. So, on the one hand, you're feeling quite hurt and vulnerable in the company of people around you, and your mask drops. You can't stay completely composed. To me, it's like this huge event of allowing anything that is false, anything that is manufactured, anything that is there to maybe protect you and others from really seeing the real you. It's crumbling, it's shattering. A deeper you is coming forwards, and that may be a bit painful for you. You might not want people to see you with your cry face on. I have to say, I'm a bit of an ugly crier. I would be a bit nervous about it too. But hey, this happens to us all. We all do get, a full moon in our own sign every year. So this is your time, baby. Anyway, what makes this a little bit more challenging is, Pluto is coming into this square. Like as this full moon is coming on, I should say, the moon makes an exact square to Mars, but doesn't come into the exact square with Pluto until a little bit after the full moon. So it's kind of an evolving picture. But Mars up here is in the 10th. There is there's a part of you that has been waiting to move forwards, on your career, like move forwards, take action. And it's, you've wanted to make these moves and you've not felt that it was the right time, or you've tried and you felt a little bit hindered. And I really do put that down to all of these retrogrades that we've had. And let's face it, the Venus retrograde, Venus is your ruling planet. So, I mean, that is, that will have most definitely affected you. But, Mars, when he was going retrograde last December, he went from this place where you have a lot of influence with others and into your career. So like Mars is moving forwards. He's getting ready to go into Leo, but at the time of the full moon, he's still in this part of your career. You are wanting to take action in your career. And yet there is this weird feeling coming from the 5th house. Now, if you've got children, it might be that it feels like there's a lot going on with your children that you're needing to be aware of. New relationships, sex and sexuality, sensuality, all come into this, but as does your own sense of joy and upliftment and your hobbies, like what you are here to bring into the world, your special skills, your talents. This is I think a very personal part of the chart where it really shows what is lifting you up, what is here to rise you up a little bit. And so I think the tension here is you're trying to lift yourself up in a kind of corporate way, in your business way, in the way that the whole world gets to see. And yet there's this much darker or maybe unacknowledged need, and that is to really serve your true passion. And maybe Mars isn't doing that. And maybe that's why you can't do it. Maybe it's really hard to, push yourself in one direction that you're not completely sold on, whilst forsaking the one that you really are sold on. So this is big. It feels like you're being pulled in different directions, and this is all here to help you be a lot more real to yourself and to admit what it is that you would really, really like to happen. to really vocalize it, to say, okay, I admit it. I do want to do this. I do have an addiction to biscuits or whatever, and I'm going to devote my life to biscuits or whatever it is. It's that acknowledgement to yourself that there is something that's coming up and it needs to be factored into your life plan. Now, whatever it is going on, like I said, Uranus is creating some lovely sextiles. We've got this beautiful stellium between Venus, Saturn, North Node, Mercury, and Neptune. These are all in the 6th house, really showing that there are new opportunities that require a lot of creativity, a lot of love, a lot of commitment, a feeling that you're serving your soul. All of those things need to be taken into account. And when you're taking those into account, you are able to move forwards, but you have to listen to these if you're ignoring your inner voice. So to me, this is all about following your inner voice and not forsaking it. It is about putting yourself first and including yourself in your conversation. So again, midway through, the emphasis has been taken off yourself. However, the feeling that you're ignoring what is bringing you your core happiness is really, really strong. And by this time, Mars has gone into the 11th house where you have some influence. Maybe it's easier for you to move forwards once you're able to talk openly about what you're going through and to reach out to more people. It might be something that you need to do with friends that you can't quite do on your own. And that would absolutely make sense. By this point as well, the sun has gone into the sign of Taurus, another Venus ruled sign, which I think is quite helpful. But the sun here is also, I think, encouraging you to move on to the next step. This part of your chart that Taurus represents is very much about the rites of passage. That you were a child and then you're a teen and then you're an adult and then maybe you became a parent or you took on more responsibilities or you bought a house. There's all these like milestones. It's not just about getting your first tooth and getting out of diapers. It is, about taking a metaphorical step forwards. And so I think as, we come to this second part of the week, you're getting a lot more internalized and recognizing that whatever is going on is really asking you to go deeper and to step forwards into a new part of your life. And this will absolutely have a huge effect on your emerging career right now and on your partnerships, as all of these planets are slowly shifting into the sign of Aries. Now, I do a relationship and connection forecast and also a career and ambition forecast, and they would be absolutely useful to you given the changes that these planets are going through right now. Anyway, as we come towards the end of this whole process, Mars and Pluto go into their full opposition across the 5th and the 11th houses in terms of a birth chart. I see these as being places of creativity. So you're either wanting to do it on your own or you're wanting to co-create with other people. Here's the thing. Mars is going to come back to this point every couple of years. Pluto's going to be going through this sign for the next 20. So every time they come up with this opposition every couple of years, these guys are going to be in opposition in the same houses, in the same signs. So you may well find whatever is going on right now is a pattern that's going to come up again and again and again and again. So it could be useful for you to diarize a little message to yourself, write a letter to yourself, your future self, and say, okay, when this comes up again, this was what I was going through and this is how I handled it and this is what I learned. Start to learn these patterns, make them your friend. So, you can, rather than kind of flounder with these planetary energies, you start to kind of bob up. You start to rise and thrive with these energies. You go, oh, there's the Pluto Mars thing. Oh, yeah, I remember what this meant. Wow, this time I'm going to use it this way. So, this is a much bigger thing for you. Anyway, this new moon, when it comes up on the 27th, I really do think you will have released the pattern that you've seen. So all of those personal planets are retrograde. 2 of them have already moved back into their original signs. It's all good. So you are feeling the quite palpable shift from before. It feels like you're getting further into 2025. It feels like it's really getting started now. And the tension between Mars and Pluto about survival and what you need to survive, i.e. for you, how can you survive by like lifting yourself up? How can you include more of what brings you joy into your life? And, you know, how can you do that without forgetting it or forsaking it? That to me is the real key. But anyway, this final new moon right at the end of this process, to me, is showing that you've got a new start. And this new start is about rising yourself up. This is about like looking over your shoulder and saying, that was the old me. I got as far as this point, but now I'm stepping over the threshold. I am coming into a new part of my journey. And this is one where you're going to have a different relationship to yourself, where you might be able to let go of guilt, shame, blame, anger. These are all the kinds of emotions that bob up in this area. This is also an area where we get much better at managing money, in particular, the kinds of money that we're sharing with other people. So this is a time when you're stepping deeper into intimacy with people, because all of the difficult subjects that we talk about in the 8th house, like sex and taxes and birth, life, death, and illness, and then the failed expectations that we have on each other, it really does take us into a deeper and deeper and deeper psychological relationship with self and others. So that's where I think it's going. Now, final thing, you know, if you are wanting the relationship and connection forecast as a deepening of this particular forecast, or the career and ambition, if you think those would be useful for you, then check this out. I've got a new membership. I host it on School. So it's www.school.com/feelgoodastrology. I charge $22 a month, and you also get 1 week's free trial. Now, you don't just get a relationship and connections forecast or a career and ambition forecast. You get 2 of them each month. So every time there's a full moon or every time there's a new moon, I will release these forecasts for every sign of the zodiac. And that means that you can also check out the forecasts for your partners, for your children, for your boss, and so on and so forth. Now, for some people, that's all they want, you know, so they've got membership just so that they can have those forecasts. But, you know, if you're the kind of person that also wants to maybe hang out a little bit, have some questions answered, have a discussion about astrology, get to know some other people that like astrology, and maybe learn more about astrology and learn together, then there's also a community hangout each month, which I host, and I send information and ask, what is it you want to talk about? And that's what we do. If you've been considering a consultation with me, or to learn with me, or to go to one of my webinars, then there's massive discounts. And you also get priority access. I tell you first. I mean, basically, anyone that's part of my membership, you get first dibs on everything. You know, my energy goes to you first. So in the last couple of weeks, I was really, really poorly. You might still be able to hear it in my voice. And I didn't put out any public forecast on my YouTube channel, but what I did put out was on my membership. So I prioritize them first. And also, if this sounds like something that you're interested in, it also helps to support my channel. So there you go. Anyway, sending you loads and loads of love. I hope you have a great time of it. This is a really, really intense time of so much change. And like I said, it does feel like we're about to lift off in the hot air balloon of Libra life. So anyway, have a good one, and hopefully catch up with you all soon for another forecast. Bye for now.